Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I'm going over our top war defense teams for the month of June 2021. I do these videos every month. They're usually some of our most watched and liked videos. Thanks to everyone who does that. You may have noticed that there's actually been a break between the last time I did this and now. In fact, I didn't have a May list. I went right from April to June. And a big reason why is because in May, the entire meta got totally transformed. First by Kestrel, and when I started working on a new list for to take into account Kestrel, then Heroes for Hire came, and it was really silly because Heroes for Hire was so absurd. This team scales so well at the level that I have them that it ends up totally transforming war, and war basically revolves around how many big at high levels. I'm in a Diamond Alliance. They essentially, the war revolves around who's got more Heroes for Hire, who's got bigger Heroes for Hire, who has better counters, that sort of thing. This team scales into such an absurd level when it hits 700, 800K that it can get almost unbeatable. Like if you put Kestrel with these guys and throw it in security where the enemy is going to have defense, or where both sides will have defense down, or the attacking team is going to have defense down to start, it can be almost impossible to kill. People throw 20 teams, 30 teams at them. Even top alliances, even big whale accounts and so forth. So this team has totally transformed things, and as a result, the list looks very, very different. It's linked below. My tier list is there. I try to keep it up to date, but let's get right to the top team, and of course, that team is Heroes for Hire, and it's in its own tier. And I've got to tell you, for the first time, we really have essentially one or two teams that are so far above the other teams that essentially, they really are so far beyond those other teams that they really are what make your entire war defense. In other words, there are other teams down here that basically, they fill a room, but they're all easily countered. If the enemy knows what they're doing, they're going to beat them in one shot. Even a team like Brotherhood Doom can easily be two-shot, and it can be one-shot very reliably as well by multiple teams. But Heroes for Hire sometimes just absolutely can't. You can rack up tons of defense wins. I'm sure you've all noticed this. But here's the thing. I've recommended that very few of you build Heroes for Hire. As I said, unless you beat DD4 a long while ago and you're really focused on Alliance War and you got a lot of resources, don't build this team. Just put your spare gear into them. And you can see why, right? They're already getting countered by Infinity Watch. That's why in our War Offense video, which came out yesterday, I talked a lot about Infinity Watch there. And of course, there's another counter as well that we feature there, and I link that video below as well. But what I will just say is this team, even after Infinity Watch is out, is going to still be very strong. Think about it. The Infinity Watch team is the new Black Order. It's the new one above all kind of team. And if you have Heroes for Hire in each one of your rooms, a big Heroes for Hire, that's going to force the enemy team to constantly use all their Infinity Watches against your Heroes for Hire, so they won't be available elsewhere. So they'll still be an advantage. And I will say, I do feel like Infinity Watch is just a soft counter that basically wins because they're so powerful and beat everything. Not a hard counter. I do think that will come in the next 3 to 6 months, to be my guess, and then you'll all regret doing what I did, and I did this very begrudgingly, investing this much in Heroes for Hire. Now, if you take a peek at my list, you can see what the other best team is, but it's definitely a tier below, and that is Infinity Watch. This is another team that I think everybody is much more excited about it investing in, and I have recommended investing in this team even if you're not going to unlock Adam Warlock, because even the 4-person team is so strong. So I think free-to-play players who are getting Phyla-Vell and Moondragon to 4 stars through the events should nonetheless build up this team. But in any event, this team is super strong. And on war defense, I've been running it some on war defense to see how it does. Even the 4-person team, which is what I'm evaluating here, is strong enough that it generally can get a war defense win. And it does have some counters, but they generally involve big punch downs. So, and a lot of times it draws the mirror, which is a good situation for you. If the enemy's using their Infinity Watch on your Infinity Watch, they don't have it on their Heroes for Hire, right? To use against your Heroes for Hire. So this is a very good team, but it doesn't rack up, 10, 20, 30 defense wins like a massive Heroes for Hire team could. This is a team that, you can get maybe a defense win or two, but ultimately the enemy's probably going to focus down one of your characters. And then once they do, the team gets progressively easier. So, this is a good team to have on defense. It's a good team to have on offense. And I think a good analogy is when Black Order first started. When that hit the game, people use it some on defense, people use it some on offense. But ultimately, where you use it depends, and where it should be used depends on who your opponent is, the situation of your alliance, what your other defenses are, and so on. All right. Now let's get to our top Doom defenses, and that's Brotherhood Doom and Uncanny Doom. So, I got a lot of flack from certain people, lots of comments and discussion on my Discord and on YouTube. And certainly leave your comments below and go to my Discord, which is linked below if you do want to have your comments. But a lot of people are like, I never would run Brotherhood or Uncanny with Doom. With Doom, I run them on offense. Well, in my level of war, basically everybody's running Brotherhood Doom right now, and before that we were running Uncanny. They're both very strong. What I would say is Uncanny now, of course, is countered more by Kestrel, but people need their Kestrels to counter Heroes for Hire. So I think if they draw your Kestrel, that's fine. But I do think Brotherhood Doom is a little bit stronger. You just drop Pyro, and in the Uncanny version, you'll just what you're running there is Phoenix, Cyclops, Psylocke, and Colossus. The idea is that both of those teams counter symbiotes. So if you put Doom with just some random characters, even if you put him with Drax or Red Guardian, or you put him with the, whatever, Fantastic Four or Marauders or some other team, those teams always end up just losing to symbiotes or losing to Axemen, because those Doom bots that come out all the time feed turn meter to the symbiotes and the Axemen. What Brotherhood does is they blind them the symbiotes on turn one, and then they have two different taunts, Blob and Juggernaut, that make it very, very hard to get to the Doom bots. And that really is what makes this a very difficult matchup. For the typical Doom counters, it's a very good defense. It can be reliably one-shot by multiple teams, so that's why it's not nearly as good as the prior two teams, Infinity Watch and Heroes for Hire. It doesn't, scale at that level, but it's still a very strong defense. Definitely worth running. And these teams have made Doom continue to be worth running on defense. I think for a long time, people predicted that Doom would get moved to offense. And that may very well happen, but for right now, he is still run predominantly on defense. So look, for the reason that I said a moment ago, every other defense is on a lower tier. And that includes all the other Doom defenses. For the reasons that I said, if you run Doom on your Marauders, all you're basically doing is just making it easier for other people to beat your Marauders with symbiotes, something that they might not have otherwise been able to do. And that's all because of this ability here on Doom, where he summons a Doombot whenever it's his turn. So, it is what it is. It is still worthwhile, I think, having Doom on defense, but, he can, I think that this team, if your opponent knows what they're doing, even if you have a Red Guardian or Drax or some other thing to try to stop the symbiotes, can still ultimately just have your Doom eaten by a symbiote, which is not a good result. Kestrel Shield, I put this on here just because I get so many questions from random people about it. This is not a good use of Kestrel. She's much better on offense. You need her to beat Heroes for Hire, or she can also beat Brotherhood Doom and a lot of other teams in a specialized team. Throwing her with Shield, actually you could just run Hydra 3.0 usually and beat that team. It's not very good. Same with Astonishing X-Men. I think that they're better used on offense. Their abilities are not used as well when they're controlled by the AI, but nonetheless, they are better than some of the filler defenses that we have down here. So I think that is what I've created here is a tier 4. I didn't want to have just one massive tier here, so I've split them off a little bit. But really, Alliance War defense right now is all about this stuff, not about this stuff. So that brings us now to our Tier 5. And our Tier 5 starts with the Wave 1 Avengers, but it's going to be what I'll call the OG Wave 1 Avengers. This is the Wave 1 Avengers that have on them Black Widow, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and Hawkeye. Fantastic team, scales really well with gear. And unfortunately, though, Black Widow is better used on Skeletor. She just has more synergy with that team, enables better punch-ups with that team, enables the mercenaries, them to counter mercenaries. So just a better overall fit there. But that, of course, weakens the Wave 1 Avenger team. People are running, Captain Marvel, or running Coulson or somebody else. They just aren't nearly as good. But one thing I will just say is, this team, before was countered by Hella Naturals. One thing that this removal of Black Widow does is it does remove that counter, but there's just plenty of other counters like X-Force and so forth that work against the team with Coulson. So I think that this is overall a very strong war defense. I wouldn't run it if you have Skeletor. I would put Black Widow with Skeletor, but because I think having a strong war offense is more important. But it's still a very good team that scales very well when it gets used with gear. All right, and now that brings us to the mercenaries, and boy, how the mighty have fallen. Before the last patch came out, mercenaries were this, the number 1 or number 2 defense, and they had been in that slot for a long time. And the reason why is because they scale insanely well with gear, and they really at the time could not be countered by anything other than Hydra 3.0 or at high levels with Black Order. But boy, has that changed. Now Skeletor just counters them easily, and it can really punch up and so forth. So definitely a tumble for the mercenaries, who now are easily countered by a team that most people have, although it's T4 intensive. You'll also notice that I moved Korath and Ultimus up above Killmonger and Shuri. Both teams generally lose to Skeletor, but a huge Ultimus, let's say a 6 red star, 7 red star Ultimus, can delete a Red Guardian unless the Red Guardian is huge. So just to be clear, the way that team would go is you're going to have the core of the team is Taskmaster, Merc Lieutenant, Merc Riot Guard. The Mokonan version has Killmonger and Shuri in it. The Kree version is Korath and Ultimus. And the reason that Ultimus is helpful is that Ultimus has an ability that just erases characters that have taunt. Okay? But either of these teams are easily countered. I consider, mercenaries to be more or less a filler team at this point. And the same is true, unfortunately, for the Marauders. A lot of people invested very strongly in the Marauders. They were kind of like the last version of Hero for Hire, right? Once they had Emma, people fell in love with this team, and they've been on a downward slope for quite some time. They're easily countered by multiple teams now, whether it's Shadowland or X Factor. At slow levels, I know I get some people from who are going up against very small Marauders who use X-Force and things like that. But the team does scale well, but unfortunately, we've reached the stage. This is where Heroes for Hire will be in 4 to 6 months, is where where the team has these multiple hard counters out there. So this is a team now that is just hard countered, and it's essentially a filler team. It's a team you put down knowing it's going to be beaten. People do drop Sabretooth. That's why mine is so low for a better 5th character, but it doesn't really matter. There's nothing you could do that adds to this team enough to make it so that the hard counters don't work against it. All right, so now we're going to get on some really more creative teams that you see here. Symbiotes. Symbiotes a lot of times now are thrown on defense just because they aren't used on offense. You can punch up big against symbiotes with Brotherhood. You can also beat them just in a mirror match, or it's probably safer to throw Zemo in the mirror match instead of Venom. or Carnage, depending on the size of the opposing symbiotes. At lower levels, people use X-Force against symbiotes. But they're fine. They're another, I'd say, filler defense. Hydra plus Zemo is another one, better on offense. People sometimes throw them on defense. You just have to use your own Zemo Hydra against them, basically. Uncanny X-Men is also basically a filler defense. They're not very useful on offense anymore, so people throw them down, and they require some sort of response, but they can lose to Fantastic Four plus Ultron, plus some other, more meta offenses. And then, of course, at the very bottom, we got the next tier down. Sinister Six has really fallen off. I know people really love this team. It just never really had its heyday the way it should have. I unlocked Doc Ock right away, and I was excited about the team. But I got to tell you, this team, it was always very good, but not quite great. And once people figured out that Doc Ock's summon enabled symbiotes and later Axemen to beat the team easily, this team just never was quite the same. People started, putting Electro on the team, for example, in order to, put Shocker on the team instead of Rhino or Mysterio in order to have a bigger summon. People have tried, so that this way it's harder for symbiotes to beat it, but really nothing works. Sometimes people put Drax on this team, which does help against symbiotes, but this team's just okay. And I think at this point it definitely is a filler defense that you're seeing broken up more and more, people using Doc Ock on other teams. All right, then this is where we've got Wave 1 Avengers without Black Widow, a team that can even lose to X-Force, which has fallen off. Fantastic Four plus She-Hulk, just even at very large sizes, high levels, just isn't working very well, just easily countered. And then we're at the stuff that really is not used at my level much anymore, other than just in room one. If you run out of teams to put in slots, stuff like Technova with Ghost or Pimtech or Young Avengers or something like that. One thing I will say is some of you tell me, well, look, I'm in Gold 4. We don't have these defenses yet. I feel like we're a year behind you. Yeah, here's the thing. If you're still seeing these kind of defenses a lot at your level in War, this is great because now you know what the future looks like, okay? So this is a way for you to, potentially innovate in your own defenses, but also it's a way for you to see what to invest in. That's why I create these lists. People have found them useful, but this is what the state of War defense is right now. It's really all about these teams up here, and the rest of these teams all are not very important and are easily countered. And really, in particular, it's really a lot about this team right here, and to a lesser extent, Infinity Watch. We'll see once Adam Warlock comes if he changes things, makes it a little bit different. But for right now, this is where the tier list is. So if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, give me your thoughts below, your comments, but also go to our Discord. That's linked, and we have lots of great discussions about Alliance War there. And also check out my Twitch stream. I stream most evenings, most weeknights, and we discuss war strategies there as well.